Ndị be anyị ekeneni m unu ọzọ n'ụbọchị nke taata. Asịrị m unu ka ọ dịrị anyị na mma. Asị m na ihe adị ka echi na echi ada agwụ agwụ. Ndị gị si na-esonyela ihe a bụ Igbo Media, bụ ebe anyị si wee na-ewetara unu ya bụ ngalaba ozi a dị nnukwu mkpa. Anyị si ka anyị gosi unu gbasata maka ihe na-eme na Igbo community and obodo anụ anyị nọ n'ime ya. Dịka o si dị, ọ bụ na nke a bụ mbọsị izizi ị na-ezite chanel anyị bụ Igbo Media, gbaa mbọ rinne ka ị sọskraịbụ and share ya ka o rute ndị ọzọ aka. Maka na infọmeshọn anyị na-enye unu bụ ihe unu ga-ama gbasata maka ihe na-eme n'obodo a, anụkwunu mara ka unu si akwado na ya bụ ife bụ ya ka anyị si ka anyị drọpụ ọrụ bifo anyị gosi unu ihe anyị ji maka ya wee bịa. Ị ga-esi ya bụ ife anyị ji maka ya wee bịa, ị drọpụrụ anyị alụ gị ife iche gbasata maka ya bụ ife ndị niile ekwu n'iru akwụkwọ. Alright, over to you, sir.
The Iranians struck them, but they will not give the Iranians the airspace to be able to attack Israel. So, or they will not also give the Israelis their airspace to be able to attack the Iranians back in return. So, what is happening now is that the Israeli nation is going full on provocation. This was on the heels of 2 days ago, America still sanctioning many companies in Iran, the drone makers and things like that, just to be able to de-escalate tension. But Israel has now gone ahead to do this. Iran is still trying to play it down. That's why when you see from Tasmin and a couple of other news agencies in Iran, they're trying to play it down. A public analyst on Iranian television was talking about the fact that, yes, it's a foreign body that comes out to strike. We're also hearing about, missile defense system battery charges going off and things like that. So there are conflicting reports. But one thing that is certain in the Middle East is Israel wants an escalation. And I think the Americans now should be able to step in and talk to Israel and be able to be stern on Israel. This idea that we don't want to look at Israel in the face, it will only bring about an escalation. Yes, Israel has the antecedents. They feel, oh, if it goes down to the wire, definitely we can fight. I mean, we beat most of the Arab nations in the 7-day war, the Yom Kippur and things like that. But warfare is different at a time where Iran has over 60% enrichment of nuclear weapons. Israel too probably has got their own nuclear warhead. But we cannot afford to have a nuclear crisis and fight on many fronts as we speak today. Because when you look at it, the West is thinning out. Just only recently, American House of Reps, the American Congress just approved another $21 billion for Israel in aid package and $61 billion for Ukraine. So there are many fights on many fronts. You can't afford to have that. It's not also good for global peace. It's also good for global business. I mean, we've talked about the Strait of Hormuz, possibility of Iran blocking that, the Houthi rebels using their proxies, attacking global trade and things like that. So there are many things we should look at. But this is the time the West needs to really talk to Israel. And I don't like this idea that everybody backs away. I was really offended that David Cameron went there the other day. He went to Israel, and all he could come back to say is that it's as if Netanyahu wants to really attack. So you can't talk to him? You, Lord Cameron? Britain can't talk to him? The Americans talk to him? Nobody can talk to Netanyahu? Has Netanyahu become a god unto itself?
All right. Dr. Wako.
Okay, yesterday I was talking about Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, who went to Israel, had a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and who came back to report that a strike was imminent, the scale of which he will not be able to predict or determine, but that, he's hoping that the Israelis would have a minimal, response. Now, we have it today. Yesterday, Thursday, the Americans, by Wednesday, later on Wednesday, the Israelis informed the Americans that they were going to strike Iran within 24 hours. Right. So what is the background to this? On April 1, Israeli Defense Forces, as it is known, IDF, attacked the consulate of the Iranians in Damascus, Syria, leading to the death of certain commanders and generals of the Israeli Revolutionary Guards. And Iran promised that it was going to retaliate And he did on April 13, sending about 300 or over 300 drones and missiles in the direction of Israel, which were intercepted by the combined forces of Israel and its allies. Now, Israel said it will retaliate. Now, every nation has the right to self-defense. It's in the UN Charter. But what is the issue is the proportion of that defense. The principles of the law of armed conflict says it must be proportional. So the first question that comes up here is that how proportional is now the response on Thursday, yesterday, by Israel? That's number one question. Number two, one of the major concerns in this international, law area, international conflict area, has been the implications for the international law regime, which is a rules-based international system relating to global peace. How does the world secure global peace? So all the allies and the commentators on the subject, they've been saying, look, we don't want an escalation of crisis in the Middle East because of the larger implication for global peace. How is that connected? Now, this week, the Iranians decided to do a display of their nuclear capabilities. I think they marked their Army Day on Tuesday. So Army Day in Tehran was on Tuesday, and what they used it to do was to declare nuclear capabilities, showing that they have long-range missiles, which was a signal to Israel that if you strike us, we will strike back. We have the capability. Now, under the international rules-based system, you remember what is called the Iran deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action,
JCPOA,
which was adopted in 2015, negotiated in 2014, adopted in 2015. The Iranians have been saying that they are going to resile out of that agreement. Now, what was the Iran nuclear deal of 2015 all about? It was to stop or moderate, Iran developing nuclear capabilities, and it placed a limit on uranium enrichment by Iran. Now, Iran is now saying, well, we will show the world that we have that capability. Now, some experts who know this subject in the United Kingdom have said that, in fact, Iran has that capability and had ignored even the sanctions placed on Iran in 2018. Because in 2018, the United States said, we don't think these Iranians are serious. And they came up with, a position that any country or company that does business with Iran will be blacklisted by the United States. And so now we have an issue now with that Iran deal, as it is also called, with President Biden, as I pointed out yesterday, saying that the United States may have to revisit the Iran deal and also, impose further sanctions on Iran. So what is our fear? Our fear is the implications for global peace. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, has already said one mistake, one mispronunciation, one wrong move could throw the entire world into a perilous moment. So I think that, the implication of this is that the world is at a brink, because the mullahs of Iran, they made it very clear that if Israel attacks them or any of their nuclear facilities, they will have no option but to respond with a significant attack. Emphasis on significant, which means that the mullahs don't even consider what they did on April 13 a significant attack. So is the world facing World War III? Because I go back to Antonio Guterres. Antonio Guterres saying one mistake, one mispronunciation, one wrong move could, put the world in a perilous state. He was referring, of course, to the circumstances of the First World War, the circumstances that led to the Second World War. And even more important is that where does this leave, all the structures, institutions, including the United Nations Security Council and the various organs of the United Nations from 1945, to date, that the world has been talking about. The UN, Antonio Guterres, can warn about perilous movement, but does he have in the United Nations as presently constituted structures that can hold global peace? So these are the challenges that we face. The question is, how will Iran respond? The question is, when Iran responds, what happens? Would the allies, the permanent 5 members plus 1, Germany and the European Union, that are involved in the Iran nuclear deal, if Iran releases its nuclear capacity, they will be under pressure not to fold their arms. So if they respond, we enter World War III phase. So it's the whole humanity, the integrity of mankind that is at stake. And to show that indeed, from the League of Nations, from the 30 Years' War, from all of those precedents that led to attempts to hold global peace, man remains in peril, in danger.
Well, following Iran's failed attack on Israel on Saturday, I use the word failed obviously because it had minimal or very minimal impact on their target. There has been visits by Lord David Cameron from the United Kingdom and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said to the Israeli war cabinet minister, Gantz, that they were looking to de-escalate tensions in the region. And so their messaging is very clear. The United States has said they would support Israel in its defense, but will not, they said very emphatically, will not support them if they were to attack Iran. All these moves in a bid to de-escalate tensions and to prevent things from getting out of hand, or as Antonio Guterres said, perilous escalation of tensions. Now, from my perspective, if you look at the response of Israel, a number of people had been anticipating to what extent would be the escalation, to what extent would be the scope of the attack. What has been said is almost that, just in the same way that Iran in the 300 drone attack failed, in quote, it would seem as if there was a pressure to respond, but the scale of response also demonstrates the fact that perhaps the pressure from the United States, the United Kingdom, some of Israelis' allies might be putting a chink in the armor of Netanyahu. I say this because Israel demonstrated that they could attack within Iran, yet didn't do any significant damage. At least reports that we hear is that from Isfahan, where a military base is, on ground, it was minimal. The impact was minimal. Also, the fact that they didn't, it could have been a bigger show of strength, show of might, show of attack from Israel themselves. But it seemed to be a warning or just a show of, we can't retaliate, you did something and we must respond somehow because we have been talking about it. But the scale of it was watered down to a very large extent. Now, my question this morning is, could this be an indication that perhaps we're on that road to tensions de-escalating based on the pressure from the international community, especially from Israel's allies? Bear in mind that now the United States has said to Iran, well, you see that the reprisal from Israel didn't have significant impact, so there's no need to respond as well, or to respond with your own attack. Recall that Iran had mentioned that if Israel does attack, they will retaliate in equal measure or even worse. And so the fact that the scale of these responses are nothing, well, let me use the word significant in the scheme of things, is this an indication that perhaps we might be seeing that road to de-escalation of tensions in the Middle East? The next few days will tell. We have Antony Blinken going to be speaking on this and responding on the US's stance on this attack. Move on to our next story this morning. The board of editors of Arise News Channel has announced that the leading cable news network has gone live in South Africa and in 9 other countries in Southern Africa on multi-choice DSTV Channel 416. According to a statement by the Chief of Staff to Chairman Editor-in-Chief Fauzia Ali Mohammed, the other 9 countries are Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Swaziland, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. With the new additions, Emmy-winning Arise News channel is live in 54 African countries. It is already available to audiences in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, as well as in Cameroon, Sudan, Ghana, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire, Francophone Africa, amongst others. Arise News channel, which marked its 11th anniversary, January 31, is Africa's premier broadcaster globally, showcasing the continent in business, politics, technology, commerce, science, sports, show business, and fashion, while projecting the best of Africa, its peoples, and culture around the world. This movement to Southern Africa cements Arise News channel's position as the leading broadcaster in Africa with independence and clear thinking. We are determined to celebrate the best of Africa and tell the African story in the global marketplace. A quote from Chairman, Editor-in-Chief Nduka Obaigbena, while affirming that Arise News channel is determined to be launched in all countries around the world. Arise News channel operates a 24-hour broadcast from studios in Lagos and Abuja, Nigeria, in Johannesburg and Cape Town, South Africa, in London, the United Kingdom, and in New York, United States. The channel can also be viewed in the UK and across Europe on the Sky platform, Sky Channel 516 and Freeview Channel 136. The Centric channel in the USA and also on the Hot Bird platform, which transmits to Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. All right, so shall we say now we will move away from just good morning, bonjour, speak all the languages on the continent as we are now what? Global.
I mean, Arise has always been global, and I'm really excited. And congratulations to the chairman, Presun Duka, Obaigbena. I mean, for the life of me, yesterday I was just going through some of his works in the past with this week, and it just shows the strength of character and what he guns out for every time. And when Arise was started, it was there to tell the story of Africa Rising, pretty much, and that's where the name comes from, Arise, Africa Rising. And we're really excited that it's done well. The only Nigerian television station to have won an Emmy, So when other television stations talk, I say, go and win your Emmy before you come and talk to us. I mean, I'm a very bullish guy like that. So, and now that we're going into all these markets in South Africa and everything, I mean, it's just in continuation of that tradition of rich quality content, telling the African story in our own great way and dimension, and be present in all of this African countries to be able to shape this Africa Rising narrative. I mean, recently Arise went there to cover a very historical moment in Senegal when President Bashir Diomaye Faye was inaugurated as president, one of the youngest elected presidents of the African continent. We've also been there in many business, events all over the continent of Africa. We also have a very strong partnership, with great banks like Afrexim and things like that. We cover most of the events across all the African continent. So anywhere you see progress on the African continent, you see that vision and initiative of Prince Nduka Obaigbena, Duke himself, and he has done it again. And, constantly, we've also put our very good inroads in the UK, in America, and other parts of the world, and definitely it can only grow from there. And this is a good one, another one. And Chairman, sir, there are implications to this. I must have to say, Dr. Abati, please note the needful. And execute the implication from Chairman. Okay. Chairman, sir.
I've heard you.
Yeah.
Congratulations are in order.
Yeah.
Celebrations are in order. A little bit of masturbation is also in order.
Yes.
Masturbatory celebration.
Yeah, masturbatory celebration.
After all, it was Chino Achebe that tells us in Things Fall Apart that the leaders that says if nobody, Agama Lizard, that if nobody will praise me,
I will praise myself.
I will raise my head and praise myself. So, all of this is in order because, look, again, a number of points about entrepreneurship. It's not easy to do business, either in Nigeria or in any part of the world. So, this is a good example of vision, of strategic thinking, of innovation, because to grow a business, you have to look at all the coordinates. At least one of those things they taught us at the Said Business School. That business is strategic. So I see a lot of strategic thinking in this regard. A station, a channel that began small and then began to grow and continue to grow. So you see, businesses are fueled by ideas, by vision, by innovativeness. It was Peter Drucker who told us that, look, if you don't innovate, the business will die.
Yeah.
Any form of business. So you find that, the example of Arise News is this capacity for continual innovation that we continue to see, coming from the company. That's number one. What is the implication of that? Also, again, from a business point of view, is that now that we are everywhere, we are not just in 54 African countries, we are in North America, we're in South America, we're in Europe, where people watch us every time. I mean, one of my brothers has a friend in Australia, the farthest point in the world geographically. And he would tell me, oh, my friend called me. He said, you said something. I say, in Australia. So that means that this is not an ordinary channel. We are not at the level of some provincial, local, channels. I will not mention it.
Mention them.
No, please.
Don't be
no. That would be demarketing other brands. It shows that, this is a big brand, that is ahead in terms of reach. And we enjoy the fact that, our audiences from across the world have been very supportive in terms of their responses, in terms of how they respond to the stories that we put out there. Now, this imposes special responsibility on all of the people here, including the people at the back end, who have now been turned into stars. Look at Emmanuel Ofeni on the screen. He's now an international star. From his, well, I don't want to mention where he lives. Now he's all over the world, in every corner of the world, So it imposes special responsibilities in terms of professionalism. It means we also have to improve upon our standards. It means that we have to be, more mindful of how we may be minded to be very provincial, knowing that this is an international channel that is operating at a level that is beyond the village, that is beyond the clan. So these are the issues. So those standards, so let's see this as a great opportunity, as a salute to entrepreneurship, and as also an opportunity for self-reinvention, scaling up the standards, improving the skills, and competing at the highest level in the world. This, I think, are the lessons, the basic lessons that should be taken away by all of you who have now become international superstars.
Well, congratulations are certainly in order, and I think it's just a reminder that we never rest on our oars. Despite the fact that we're leaders in the industry, we must also admit the fact that we also keep finding ways to break new grounds, do new things, and continue to be recognized as pace setters. Congratulations to the Duke himself and to all the people who make the dream work. And I'm glad that we had a show reel of some of the people in front of the camera. We have a lot more behind the scenes. And just to say that this is a testament of the hard work of the good people of the Arise Nation.
What about Slainol? Ibabulo Senate President, Ibabulo Vice President. Nothing. And the new Muyindini Megasquano, Umuna is so good about Famba. Mako Kive, they make it this year, Adrozi, Asimo getting a message or the Carlo. Aratos the email. Negodin Kobodo City. Key marriage de one night workable mazin and the canon and boro. Akomakandibo. Can you Joe Miller? Macos na Nibo Gade, Macos na Gade. Na ga the kitchen, a child agua. What do you also jide? Joe Gadra. Gini ka ejiji de maazị Nnamdi Kanu ọkwa maka ọsị n'Igbo ya adị biko ọtụtụ ka iwepụtara ife a bụ Igbo midia anyị na-asụ n'onu be anyị ọnụnụ be anyị ka anyị na-asụ so biko ọ bụ na ede anụ Igbo iwe ewe na gị ọnụnụ be anyị ka anyị ji akọwa ihe na-eme ebe a ka ego ọkwa na ya na-ekwu before unu ekwe n'iwe ka ife onye ndu melụ ọ sị na ya na-eme mgbomgbe ndị Igbo na-abịa n'alụ ọ na-ewute ya Simon Ekpa Pinia ayaboba ya mgba ka emere obedient movement akwụwụrụ okwu maazị Nnamdi Kanu kwuru before ejide ya they will never give you that president, that seat. Akwodoro na ya no Peter Obi winere mana nyere ya. Gịnị ka ha si ya bụ? Mba! Igbo mara na ife. Maka ọ ka esi na-ekwuzi okwu, ọ ka ife ga na-esi na-emezi. Ọ bụ na ịkpọrọ onwe gị meeting, chịkọ onwe gị ọnụ, jụọ onwe gị ajụjụ a, ka ebe ịkwụ n'obodo a bụ Naịjirịa. Ajụ nchọkwa onye ọbụla bụ onye Igbo na-ege m ntị n'elu akwụkwọ a, jụọ onwe ya. Na na-ejicha onwe gị ya bụ ife, isaa ya. Ọ bụna ka m n'ọnụ. Ihe a bụ Igbo Media. Daalụ n'ụmụnne.